On this episode of Sega Talk, we discuss the legendary Dreamcast and Xbox game Shenmue 2. We talk deleted cut content, rumors of a PlayStation 2 port, and even mispronounce a bunch of Chinese names. All this and more on Sega Talk.
SegaBits presents Sega Talk, a podcast talking all things Sega! With your hosts, George and Barry.
Look, it's a giant talking egg. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the master here. Say what?
Hello and welcome to Sega Talk. I'm your host, George Hazuki, and with me is Lad Barry. That in the notes.
I love it. Beautiful.
Okay, sorry. Today, we're going to take another deep dive into the world of Shenmue. This time, Shenmue 2, which, if you met one of our first episodes, episode number 16 was actually the first game. And we did that one all the way back in April 19th, 2019. I thought it was like way...
Amazing.
I thought it was going to be like 2016 we did it or something. So it's weird because it's like that pandemic, you know, it was like before the pandemic. So it feels like it's a lifetime ago.
Oh, well before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I think, our first show that did the side-by-side video with the graphic below, because the file I have whenever I make these templates has Shenmue as the base layer, like burned into it. So that's pretty wild that we are now here talking... Shenmue 2 from Yu Suzuki.
Yeah, and this is the part where we plug our Patreon, Barry.
Plug it in. If you like what we do, you can support us on Patreon. We have several tiers. There are tiers that let you pick what we talk about, and this is a Patreon pick. In fact, every episode for the next, I think, 3 months are going to be Patreon picks. Very exciting stuff. Lots of interesting things are coming up. The next episode will be Shenmue 3. This episode is Shenmue 2. And I also want to mention, George, I didn't run this past you, but we do have a sponsor for this episode. I just want to plug them. George, do you ever need like cat food or batteries or like cassette tapes?
Always.
But do you like convenience stores that don't sell food that you can actually eat?
Yes. Well, it's so inconvenient to have food.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you, tomato convenience stores are the place to go if you need cat food, batteries. You can look at other things, but you cannot buy it. So like toilet paper, food, you can look at it, it's there, but not for sale. Really cool place, so check them out. I think they existed in the 80s in Japan. I don't think they're around anymore. But they paid us a hefty sum to promote themselves on this episode.
Gotta edit the tomato theme song right here while you're saying this. Yeah, like you said, it was this Daniel Andres did this, so let's play his parts of his memories. I'm gonna be honest, he gave us like a 30-minute audio clip. I tried to condense it as much as possible. This is only a couple of minutes, but like I decided to, so it's fair, you know, since he did put a lot of thought and effort. I'm going to splice it in, so when we talk more about the characters, so he won't spoil some of the talk, I'll splice them in when we talk about the characters. And there's he did a nice little selling point, and I'm going to put that in the end of the podcast, you know, instead of the memories this time. Well, he'll tell you why you guys should be playing this game, and he really, really, really loves this game. It's pretty interesting, because, like, I love this game, but, like, there's some really, really hardcore people out there, so Daniel's one of them for sure.
The biggest game that has ever come out of an in-house development from Sega while they're still making console. The biggest game ever on the Dreamcast. And probably the biggest game Yu Suzuki has ever made next to Shenmue 3. I love this game. This, for a long time, was my favorite video game of all time. It still is technically. Now it's Shenmue 3 kind of, but I love all 3 games just the same.
Wow, all 3?
Story. It's one video game. That's the way it was always meant to be. Shenmue 2 itself is very special for many different...
Wait. Before we get into more, he loves all three of them. It's like having a kid, right? Sometimes, like when you like these franchises, it's like even the one that's a little, not the greatest, you still love them, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's listen
That's
to
amazing.
the rest.
It's such a huge game in scope compared to the first one.
That's true.
Rio, right from the beginning, is a fish out of water in a new land. And it's just such a unique concept. I fell in love with this game the moment I saw that opening with him on the boat and the music. And this was right after I beat Shenmue 1. I got this game for an Xbox. Rewind the clock back to December of 2013. One of my closest cousins, Jake, was there at my parents' house during Christmas of this year. I must have been like 19 or 18, I think. And he gave me his original Xbox, just out of the blue.
I wish
and
someone
one of
would
the
give
first
me
games I also
an
picked up for it
Xbox.
was Shenmue 2. And so I got into it, and wow, it was amazing. I fell in love with Ren right away, and Master Li Xiaotao, or Xu Wing, she's such an amazing character. I feel like she does not get talked about enough, but she's such a great character. She's like the Yoda of Shenmue, and no one ever talks about her. It's very, kind of disgraceful, but whatever. I also really, really love Wong. Joy's great. She's a really good character. And what was his name? The dude with the old dude with the with the ugly face, kind of. He's like
Everyone in that game.
What was his name? He was
ugly.
like the informant. He was a good character too. See, one of the problems with Shenmue 2 is I forget the character's name sometimes.
I think
Yanda Zhu. That was his name. Yanda Zhu. Shenmue 2 was about you trying to find Yanda Zhu, the man who had answers possibly about what happened between Ryo's father and Lan Di, Iwao and Lan Di. And we still don't know if he killed Lan Di's father or not. And I'm kind of hoping that it turns out that he did, but it was like an accident, kind of. Like, that's what I think is going to happen with the game story. One part that really, really bothered me was the Yellowhead building. It took me forever getting...
I'll stop it right here because we're going to be talking about the Yellowhead building and the Ghost Hall, I think it's called, when you have to do the planks. I would say one of the things that I agree with him is I already have trouble keeping up with Japanese names, and like when I first played Yakuza and they get really, really Japanesey, it really was really hard for me at the time. This game was almost impossible because I have less exposure to Chinese culture and how you say the names properly. So it's one of those weird things where you're like, that character, and I also noticed that like I&II kind of made some of the games like Ren. Some of the names just keep them short. Joy,
right?
So I could see people forgetting a lot of the names, especially more of the underground side characters. So Barry, let's open up the episode like we always do with our memories. What's your history with Shenmue 2? Thoughts about the media surrounding it at the time, which was a lot of drama, and your views, have they changed now than before?
Yeah, well, Shenmue 2, I have a ton of memories of this game. I mean, anyone who grew up owning a Dreamcast, 2001, right? Early 2001 was very stressful because they made the announcement that SEGA was discontinuing it, but still supporting it, but making games for other companies. And so you were like, do I need to buy a PlayStation 2 and Xbox now? Like, I have only had this Dreamcast for a few years. Like, the Dreamcast at that point was almost like the Wii U, but the opposite. Like, it was, Nintendo was like, nah, we're done with it. We're removing support, and everyone's like, thank God, this thing sucked. And with the Dreamcast, Sega was like, we're done. We're removing support. And people were like, what? I love this thing. What are you doing? No.
Yeah.
It absolutely sucked because I was so stressed out about like what was going to happen to Sega. The messaging wasn't really great to the fans, so it would be kind of like, you're still getting your games, but they're also going to be on other consoles, and you're like, what? Like, be straight with me. Like, am I going to get these games that I've been reading about for months and years in magazines? And so it absolutely devastated me. I remember when I learned that Shenmue was going to be an Xbox exclusive, or Shenmue 2, and you would learn these things not through like you would now where Twitter's there and like a community manager completely lays everything out and you get it within minutes. This was like you had to ask someone at school who said he heard from someone that they saw on a message board, or you would read it in a magazine like months later. Like, there was not concrete messaging about what was coming out and what wasn't. And so when I learned that, and I have it here, the Xbox would be getting Shenmue 2 exclusively, I was like I said, I was just crushed. So I did everything in my power to learn how to import games. And so I actually imported Shenmue 2 for the Dreamcast from Europe. I found, you know what it was? It was, I think, NCSX. Do you remember that website?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah, they were a fantastic site. I think they were taken down when they were selling mod chips for the PS2 or something.
Sony was going after a lot of those kind of websites. Yeah, and so they knew that there was a huge market for this, so they got a ton of Shenmue 2 copies in. They sold out fairly quickly, but I got one. So I was playing this, I think, within like a month of release in Europe, and this was well before the Xbox One came out. So I didn't really have any Sega buddies at the time that were really into Shenmue 2, but I just felt so empowered that I had played through this game so early before really any other American that I knew of. And yeah, I mean, right there you can tell I have a ton of memories with this game, and it paid off. Like, nowadays I will import games, I will spend money on collector's editions, and I hardly touch the games. Like we've talked about Bayonetta 2. I bought a console to play Bayonetta 2. I actually have not finished or even made a dent in Bayonetta 2. But this game, like, I played through it. Like, I played the shit out of it. Yeah, and I think the media surrounding the Xbox move was pretty, like, negative from fans. A lot of people were, like...
Huge.
Like, it was so negative. And skipping the English dub, which is kind of weird because, like, when Yakuza, like, just dropped the dub and stuff, a lot of people were mad, I guess, at first, but, like, they kind of gave up on it quickly, and they would even say that, like, the Japanese one was superior, and it even lived on till 6. Now they obviously have the dubs, and they're better now than they were before, but it's just weird. And you got the Japanese one. What do you think about going from the first game in English to the second one in Japanese for the Dreamcast version?
That's a great question. Yeah, the first game absolutely had a lot of, like, meme-ness to it before memes were even a thing.
Yeah.
Like, people making jokes about the sailors, making jokes about, milk's good for a schoolboy, like just the weird voice acting. And then when you played Shenmue 2, you're like, oh, this feels, like, super serious, and, like, the acting is good. And it just felt more mature. It stripped itself of a lot of the the meme-ness of it, and it felt like a proper game. Like, it really handled Yu Suzuki's original vision exceedingly well. And so I was very kind of disappointed in this version not having the Japanese dub as an option. And it's pretty amazing that it wasn't until the 1 and 2 came out just recently that we finally get to hear Shenmue 1 and 2, the way it was supposed to be. So, yeah, and that's no knock on the actors. I mean, we've had one of them on before. I think Lisa Wilkerson is one of the best voice actors.
And we'll talk about her role, because it's actually...
For sure.
We were actually cited in one of the wikis that I did research on, so I was like, hey, I did that, I remember that. Why am I looking at it on the Wikipedia if I remember that? As for me, like, I thought it was weird because I was kind of unsure about the first game. It was weird. I loved it, but so many of my friends that were, like, hyped for it were expecting, like, basically an action game, I guess what Yakuza became, more of that kind of stuff. And so they were kind of disappointed that a lot of it was the simulation aspect of the game, you know what I mean? Like, the first game was more simulation. This was more of what I think people thought it was going to be. And it's kind of sad that some people I know never gave the second game a chance because they thought the first one was a little, like, boring for their point of view, I could see why people wouldn't like the first one, There's a lot of setups that, like, don't pay off until you go to Hong Kong. I feel like a pivotal point of the game is going to Hong Kong and finally being there, being this kid from a small town in Japan going to the big city. and not having that in one package, I think we'll talk about it later. But as far for the Xbox release, I remember people being upset. I remember Peter Moore becoming president and everyone making rumors that he was going to probably save the franchise. And then when there never was a 3 on Xbox, all the fans said he's the one that killed it. So it's funny that it's like you can't do it. They just wanted more. If Xbox just gave them all of it, they probably would have been fine with it. I think a lot of people now, but
right. And it was such a disjointed series because of that too. Because for the longest time, Shenmue 1 was a Dreamcast exclusive, and at least in America, Shenmue 2 was an Xbox exclusive. And then when you wanted to play Shenmue 3, it was a PS4 exclusive. So it's like 3 consoles to play 3 games. Ridiculous.
Yeah, that's pretty ridiculous. So Shenmue 2 is a Dreamcast/Xbox game that was released in 2001 for the Dreamcast, and then a year later, 2002, on the Xbox. In this episode, we'll be talking about the improvements made on the Xbox version, but we'll mostly be talking, obviously, about the Dreamcast. I mean, they're the same base game. Like, once you talk about one, you're talking about the other one. So it's kind of hard to talk about the development, which we usually talk in this section, because development-wise, the Shenmue 2 is basically Shenmue 1. Like, the history of it, Shenmue 1 and Shenmue 2 come together. When you actually start looking at a lot of the history, you start noticing that, like, it's always about Shenmue 1, because Shenmue 2 was basically, like, made simultaneously. Shenmue, the first one came out in December 29, 1999, barely making 1999 release window. 2 came out in September 6, 2001 in Japan. So almost 2 years later. While it doesn't seem very... it's actually pretty short, considering that the project started all the way in 1993, as early. When Shenmue 1 was first showing, they actually used a lot of Hong Kong footage in the actual release, and it was... I mean, is this where... Okay, so basically, when they released the description for the first Shenmue project, just called Shenmue, it wasn't going to be called anything else, they kind of gave them the Hong Kong plot, which is the Shenmue 2 plot. And apparently back then they actually expanded the first chapter, which apparently it was only supposed to be set... It was supposed to be a short introduction in this town, and it was supposed to be set 30 years in the past. That's what I read. And then they made... I'm assuming they made the town and spend so much money that they're like, this has to be its own game, basically. And and then that's when they started expanding it. I have a couple of pictures here we could look at. The first one is a April 1999 issue of Next Generation magazine. As you can see right here in this page, they're literally showing you some of the scenes from the tower, one of the towers from Hong Kong, when you fight to go up.
Wow.
And they obviously right here compare it to Die Hard Arcade, which, I mean, it makes sense. Did you know that, like, some of these scenes were... I mean, I think we all knew when we saw the Sega Saturn footage that it was planned pretty early on, the whole story. But did you know that they purposely kind of, like, cut content out because they wanted to expand it and make it 2 games after a while? Like that.
I did notice things being promoted that were definitely not in the game, but I remember them saying, like, oh, this is going to be a series of games, so maybe they were very quick to, like, go back on the press, junkets and be like, yeah, the stuff you saw before, there's more games coming. I mean, episodic games were kind of new at the time, if I remember.
I think this is like... I don't think there was that many, to be honest. Like, it was almost non-existent to mainstream audience, at least, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, I know, because I know Floygan Brothers was, like, considered, like, you're going to be getting these cheap Floygan Brothers games, and they're episodic. Episode 1's coming out now, and then episode 2 will be out in 6 months, and you'll get them a couple every year. But with Shenmue, I remember them also kind of pushing it at a certain point where they were like, well, you get 1, which has chapters, blah, 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 2, which has this. So, oh.
I do have another screenshot of like I posted this on our Twitter. It's cut content or at least pictures. Some of these are for TGS, like the alpha build. As you can tell, there's one right here on the bottom right hand corner. It's Ryu going into TGS building with a bunch of Dreamcast playable Dreamcasts, like the little booth. And there's a few other ones right here that they never made, and I'm like, I really wish they would reuse some of this. Like they gave us the ability to go to the TGS booth when the game came out. They already built it for TGS, literally, and they never released it as extra content. It's always like Sega spent so much money on this game, and like they have so much content that they never actually released. Like I would love that this was in the 1 and 2 collection. That would have been really, really cool. Just
that
walking around,
awesome.
Just to walk around the beta stuff, you know. There's also the motorcycle they never put in. But yeah,
right.
Right here is so the plan after this, when they decided to do Chapter 1 for Japan, was, and then the sequel was that in America we were supposed to get a bundle with 1 and 2, and it was just going to be called Shenmue. But since the first game got expanded so much, Sega decided that they're going to sell it as a separate release. And so stories, movies, books, they all have rhythms when it comes to plot points. And making the person consuming the content feel satisfied, you have to hit the right note at the right time. It's like a cliffhanger in an episode. It makes it addicting because that cliffhanger was so good that you want to watch the other one. Do you think it was a mistake for I&II to like shatter their vision and like release number 1 and then all of a sudden release 2 with it? Because it kind of feels like the ending of 2 should have been the ending for the first game. Like that's the biggest hook.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time it made sense to split them up. I think if anything it was a mistake to think that you could go 2 games and still have a hanging, like a cliffhanger. Like, yeah. I know there's so many people who like think this is a terrible idea to restrict Yu Suzuki's vision, but like dude was given a chance. He should have wrapped things up with 2. The mere fact that it took nearly 20 years for Shenmue 3 to come out and then he still hasn't resolved it is, I hate it. Like I'm sorry, but to me it's kind of like, I don't want to say like a slap in the face to fans because, you know, that's a little dramatic, but like the mere fact that the, you know, spoiler alert, like the end of Shenmue 3 isn't even all that climactic or special. It just feels like a retread of Shenmue 2. Like, when is this franchise going to not only like really start paying off, but conclude? Like I remember within weeks of Shenmue 3 coming out, people were going, we want Shenmue 4. And I'm like, all right, go bug Yu Suzuki now. Stop bothering Sega because you clearly know how it's going to get made. You know, like... Yeah. It pisses me off as a fan. Like, I'm tired of waiting. Like, I stopped caring about the story. I'm sorry. Like, I sound really grumpy now, but, like, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of fans are, like, split on the whole, like, 3. And we're going to have a whole episode of 3, so I don't really want to go into my thoughts on it yet. But let's talk a little bit more about the work that went into it. So, we, to get Shenmue off the ground, Sega had a carousel of over 300 developers. In Shenmue 2, it seemed that they shrunk, but it was still around 200 people. I did some research, and not that much, you know, but apparently this God of War on the PS4 had the same amount of workers as Shenmue 2 did back then now, and people consider that a very tiny game. Like, I think there's over 200,000 workers for Red Dead Redemption 2, and they said that that's because, you know, gaming's changed so much now that you outsource a lot of stuff, so they count those outsourcers as developers now. So 2,000 is pretty inflated, especially when you're paying like different wages than they were in this era. But Final Fantasy X on the PS2 had 100 people working on it. I mean, if you want to see some, you know, comparisons, I did also see that Metal Gear Solid 2 only cost $10 million, which I feel like is really, really low for the quality of that game that they made back then. I like the only reason that they talked about it because they were bragging because it was the budget of a Godzilla film. They were really proud of that. So Outside of that, sadly, most of the development doesn't really talk much about the games or stories about their issues. I do know that Yu Suzuki does talk a lot about the cut content and like fights that he wanted to do. Apparently, he had a lot more action scenes he wanted to do, and this game actually does not have as much. We'll talk about it later, but there's not that many action scenes. A lot of the action takes place in QTEs in this game. Considering compared to the first one, I think like Shenmue 1 was more like balanced. You know, it had fighting, QTEs, and then it had more exploring, and they all kind of take a equal footing. Even the story kind of takes like they break off the story to let you explore after a while. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So let's talk about, I think for a lot of people, the most memorable part of the game, the stories and characters. Basically, the first game takes place during Chapter 1, but this game starts off right away on Chapter 3. Is this some Star Wars thing, or what's going on? Actually, Chapter 2 was cut, so when you get in the boat ride to Hong Kong is actually a chapter that was cut. Apparently, I have a quote right here, but let's look at the comic book that I have right here, the manga that they made.
Right. That was on the Xbox disc.
It was. And they is it the same exact one, or did they is this one a different no,
It's the same one.
Okay, I'm just going to scroll down it, but basically Ryu looks at Chao or Chai, whatever his name is, the golem from Final Fantasy from Lord of the Rings. He kidnaps a girl. Right. The thing didn't even okay. He runs. Apparently, they designed this whole boat, and they even did the layout, and they did the 3D graphics to where he escapes. And the fight was supposed to be really, really cheesy, apparently, but and over the top. But they never actually did it. You know what? I'm not really that concerned about this being cut. Like I said, it's just, is this really a chapter of you fighting the same guy you just fought in one? You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And yeah, that's. What's your opinion about this cut content? Is it like I don't think it's a big deal. There's a lot of people that really, really want Yu Suzuki to remake it on the 2 engine.
Right. I'm not too bothered about it being cut. I mean, this character Chai does return in Shenmue 3, so it's not like we need to have him keep coming back. I mean, this is kind of already covered once he returns. But yeah, it's nothing too exciting. Like it reminds me of Dynamite Deca a little bit, actually. Like on the boat, rescuing a girl, running around. But yeah, I mean, more content's always welcome, but this is definitely not like essential. And I'm kind of surprised that it's marked off as a chapter because it just seems so
small,
insignificant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%, especially how long the chapter we just played, the beginning was. That like, oh, this boat scene, it's like, are you going to make like a scenario where there's like some story or something? And my issue with Yu Suzuki sometimes is like, that was my plan. So I'm still going to write a scene where people talk about the boat and like, thank you for rescuing. So when you play the second game, you're like, what is this guy talking about? They saw you in the boat. What? Like, he still adds the like connections there. And I'm like, there is no connection. You deleted the chapter. You should rewrite this and like take all this dialogue out. But whatever. I don't know why he does it. So in a quote, Masakaze, the actor who played Ryu, who he said he actually played him for 5 years before the games even came out. That's crazy. But yeah, says that the boat scenes were filmed. He said in a quote, they were filmed in a really over-the-top style. Laughs. Several of the people involved in the story on the boat were to then appear again in a later scenario. And I think they still did anyway, but they would say something along the lines, oh, it's you from that time on the boat, ... Connecting the plot together. That was the plan for the scenario. I feel like just to tell you, hey, you're the guy from the boat. You don't need to like make a whole boat scene. Like it could have just been that you arrived and that's it. Like I think they did it perfectly. But
right.
Yeah. So let's talk about Chapter 3, the beginning of the game. The game finally has a start in Chapter 3 as Ryu, as he arrives to Hong Kong in order to find, oh my god, I'm going to butcher this, Master Li Shao Tao, which was informed was it. He basically Master Chen gave us the information in the first game to find him. This is the only link Ryu has. Along with finding Yonda Zhu, who sent his letter, his father a letter that got there late, saying that he was going to get murdered. One thing each Shenmue chapter did well was they gave us a brand new cast of characters, and to be honest with you, it made me miss the characters you meet before. Like, when I played this game right away, when I got into chapter 3, I'm like, wait, no more Fukusan, no more nothing. Like, all these characters, Tom, everybody that we, like, talk... what is it, Majima or whatever, Goro or whatever, but
right.
Not Goro Majima, the other one, but
Mihashi.
Yeah. We never got to see them again in this one, at least. So there was always this nostalgia and homesickness that I think they did really well when you started this chapter. But they also did a good job introducing new characters. So let's talk about some of them. Joy. And I also put the picture of the art right here, like the sketches, because I really love the 2D art of this game. Joy has an outspoken and confident personality, contrasting the more reserved and shy personalities of Nozomi and Ling. She lives in a risky life on the edge, but she is street smarts to make up for it. If one of her friends has been wrong, she can get revenge, such as when fools scam artists, basically. She is a fan of biking and seems to enjoy rock and roll music. She may also be a fan of video games, maybe. As she can be found in Pine Game Arcade. I like how it's like a nerd guy fantasy. Oh, she's edgy, and she might like video games. Anyway, what do you think about Joy?
Isn't her theme song from F355 Challenge, the other Yu Suzuki game?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that song came from that, where it goes, yeah, you've never seen any woman the likes of her. Da, 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 da.
I feel like that game is a whole... I think this is Yu Suzuki's waifu. I think so. It could be.
Probably. Yeah. I like her. She's a fun addition. I think she's one of the strongest like original characters in Shenmue 2, and I think, if anything, when you compare Shenmue 1's secondary cast to Shenmue 2's, I think Shenmue 1 has the edge. It just has much more memorable, funny characters. And I think Joy is really the only one who really kind of matches, or, I could see her fitting in well with that cast, and I actually like her more than some characters. Like Nozomi, I think, is a very bland character.
She's always like
it's
sad,
interesting
too.
to compare her to Nozomi.
Nozomi's always sad. She's like, oh my god, Ryu, you okay? It's like, shut up. I mean, okay.
Yeah, right.
I like her too. One thing that I kind of put in my mind when I met her was like, it was interesting that when you played the first game, you get the bike to rescue Nozomi, but this girl just comes in a bike right away, and it's like, I don't need to be saved, basically, kind of like
interesting, yeah.
So I kind of picked that up. Her whole thing's a motorcycle and rock and roll. The next character, Wong, is a young kid, at the time 13, and the youngest member of Ren's gang, and is the first character you meet he doesn't lead you to Ren technically, but he does lead you into a trap to take all your money. The guys that he hung out with are called Sam, Larry, and Cool Z. Very cool.
I like Cool Z.
We know Wong's an orphan and says he doesn't know what his parents look like. That's kind of all we know about the character. What do you think about this character? The poor 13-year-old kid that works for gangs, basically. That's kind of sad.
Yeah, he's like a character out of the, like the Oliver Twist sort of thing, where he's like the Artful Dodger sort of character. He's all right. He pissed me off when he took my bag. I didn't like that.
Yeah. I always think it's funny that like the art, like his 2D art, looks like an anime character, like a Dragon Ball Z character. I thought it was pretty funny. The next one is Zai Ying Hong. She's the martial arts master that surprises Ryu, who he thinks it's a male. I think we all thought that when we heard the name. We're like, oh, this guy's going to be some old-ass dude with a beard. And no, it's a female. She's young. I think Yu Suzuki was playing the idea that like, all these Chinese movies, they always have the bearded old man, Kill Bill status as the master that you're
Right.
supposed to find, and it's kind of a cliche. So he made her 26 years old, considered the youngest master to ever do it. She's thoughtful and is always thinks before taking action, unlike Ryu, because that dude is like, oh, Landy's in China, I'm just gonna go in a boat real quick and just go fight him. I don't know anything. I'm 18 years old. One of her main points is important. Oh yeah, he says that she teaches Ryu not to act hastily. She's the Yoda for sure. She tells him that revenge isn't worth it, which I think is going to change the course of his path. She shares a similar story to our hero. As she was a child, her parents got murdered. Her brother would go on to join the Chai Yu Min, which Lan Di is one of the masters, believing that one of them murdered them and promised her that he would return, and he gave her like half his yin yang stone. He never came back, her brother, and she still doesn't know what happened. I feel like that's going to be an integral part of the story where one of the masters that you meet that you have to take down is going to be her brother. And it's going to be a pretty interesting scene. So they're definitely building up to this like more epic Chinese fights to do with morality. But what are your thoughts about her?
I think she's fine. She serves the story well. Not one of the most memorable characters, but probably one of the most important ones you meet early on. She's not like someone you just bump into. She's actually very important to the story. Design-wise, looks cool. I'm pretty neutral on her, but I like her overall.
I think a lot of people have a sour taste because like her missions were kind of like, they're like, this is about patience, and then they give you like, go get books and take them over there, and it's like, oh, people are like, I don't want to do this, I want to go fight, I don't want to do, you know what I mean? So I can see why people have sometimes this section have a negative taste about it, but I think the next character is pretty iconic for this game. Ren of the Heavens, leader of the notorious gang The Heavens. Ren is charming thief that loves money and he tries to cheat his way to the top. He is known for having 2 coins he carries, one of them with both heads and one of them with both tails. That's why he, in a way, to cheat us out of his situation. Ryo comes into contact with Ren because he is told he knows about the man that wrote the letter to his father and offers him $500 for the location, or you have to work for it basically, or fight for it. Ren would go on to accompany you on the adventure when he finds out there might be a lot of money tied into the Phoenix Mirror. Interestingly enough, in the beta version of the game, there was a hand-to-hand combat scene between Ren and Ryu that got cut out.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would say about him, he's probably the most iconic character, and like, I think even the voice actor and him had like a big relationship, so this should have been definitely a character that got introduced in the first game because I think he's that charming. He's kind of like the Han Solo. It's like if Han Solo never got introduced until the second movie of Star Wars, that would have been a big bummer, in my opinion. So it's kind of like that to me. I don't know. How do you feel about Ren?
I like him. He's kind of like the shadow to Ryo's Sonic.
For sure.
To the point where like Ren has his own little fan base. I think if there is one edge that Shenmue 2 has over 1, it's that this guy is clearly so much better designed and just interesting than, and I'm even blanking on his name, the dude in the suit in the first game. Like, what a forgettable character.
Master Chin's son, or I don't even know what he was. He was his son, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, he definitely was a lot better. And does he come back at 3? I haven't finished 3.
He does.
Okay, good.
Ren does, yeah.
All right. I'm going to play a little bit of Daniel. Daniel has something to say about this character.
Meeting Ren for the first time. It was like seeing Luke Skywalker meet Han Solo for the first time, but in Shenmue. That's exactly what it's like. Ren is Han Solo in Shenmue. That's exactly who he is. He's about money, but he also has a bit of a heart of gold. And you can tell he does care about these guys. But he's really just in it for the money. Like, that's his character. And I love him because of it. I love his dynamic with Ryo. I love his personality. I love his voice. It's a shame they didn't get Eric Vale. Was that his name? Eric. I forgot his name, but the guy who voiced Red. It's a shame they did not get him back for Shenmue 3. I love the final boss with...
We'll play the other one about the final boss later, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so obvious what they're trying to do with the dynamic. The schoolboy, the thief with the heart of gold. It just works. It's really smart. After this, we actually go to... how do you say this place? Kowloon? The city... Kowloon. Loon. The city in the mountains, giving us a brand new area of Hong Kong in Chapter 4. This is when we're searching for Yuandu Zoo. Even a new gang. Oh yeah, we have a new gang called the Yellowheads in this chapter, which I don't know. I don't know if that's like considered racist now. Like, because there's like the term for Chinese people. So it's a Chinese gang named Yellowheads. This chapter definitely has more of the action bit. Like, I feel like the first one was setting up the city and the talking to people and trying to get to the next bit. And this one was more like the action, finally. We got to the dangerous city of tall towers, basically. And the first person we want to talk about is this Dual New, the big, fat Yellowheads gang leader. He's considered a large man, 7'2" supposedly, towering over everyone. That's ridiculous. He's supposed to weigh over 396 pounds. He's your basic brute-like character that lacks smarts, with him even getting the nickname Stupid Duo Nuo. And the Yellowheads and Ren is supposed to be like his rival gang. I don't know how that works out since they're like in different cities. They feel like they're so far away. But basically they're on the mission to also find Zhu, the guy that sent you the letters, because Lan Di told them to capture him. So I'll let Daniel talk a little bit about him, and then we'll talk about him and his last fight.
Don Yu, is that his name? Don Yu, I think? Not my favorite video game final boss of all time. No, but it's definitely up there. I thought the fight was so damn epic. They had the To Earth and Sea song remixed while you're fighting him. That was a really awesome inclusion. And, having Rio's friends cheering him on. I always love that. I know it's cheesy, but I love when a video game ends with, like, your friends or when the story ends with, like, your friends by your side, either fighting with you or cheering you on. Like, every Sonic game does that. Earthbound, one of my favorite games of all time, does that. And Shenmue 2 does that. I think it's awesome. I think it's great when your friends are like, yeah, kick his ass. They're all there cheering, or they're kicking the ass for you or with you while you're fighting the big bad guy. And then getting to meet Shen. Okay,
we'll talk about the next character in a little bit. But yeah, the final battle with him is probably what makes him us even knowing the character, to be honest with you, because I feel like he wasn't really even doing much in the story wise. He was just like, I'm the boss, and then we had other people do it, like Juan. I guess we'll talk about it in a little bit, but her boyfriend, girlfriend, I don't know how that works. We'll talk about it because there's a lot of mixed opinions. Yeah, let's talk about that because that's probably more interesting. This character, Juan, is a controversial figure when it came to localization. Juan is the right-hand person of Dual Nuo. In the Japanese version of the game, Juan is considered, according to wikis, stereotypically effeminate gay man who has a relationship with him, the boss, but is also listed as trans. Outside of Japan, Juan was localized to be a woman and given a woman's voice and pronouns, which would in line with the character being trans. While the English version hinted at Juan was in a relationship with Dao, the Japanese version states it as a matter of fact. Like, it's specifically they're in a relationship. Also, notice during the research, a lot of that they basically cited our 2015 Wilkerson interview with the voice actors, where she kind of talked about it more. You guys are interested in this topic, definitely check out that audio, because I think it's the first time she's ever come out and talked about this kind of thing and what Sega told her and how to. Basically, Sega hired her to make the voice as ambiguous as possible to not anger Western fans. Wands is considered the first trans character. Shenmue 3 also features another trans character, but we'll cover that in the next episode. This one we're going to talk about Wand. And we lived during the 2000s. I mean, I sent you those articles where those people went to E3 and it's like the most grossest crap these journalists would say, you know?
Right.
So we're talking about that era, not today's era. So do you think that this would have caused a lot of bad press for Sega to do this?
Well, first off, I don't think it was tastefully done then. It does not. I mean, you look at this art, it does not come across as progressive or tastefully done. I think it's done more like ooh, aren't they wacky? Isn't this funny that the big dumb strong guy is actually in a gay relationship with this super effeminate actually trans character, but they're both guys, haha. You know, like I definitely don't think Yu Suzuki and team were being all that progressive with this. It really comes off as like a kind of a mean-spirited stereotype. I mean, I'm not canceling the game at all, but you know what I mean. Like,
I know
you see this a lot too in like Jackie Chan movies when there is a gay character. They're always like, "Oh, Jackie, aren't you cute?" You know, like it's always like that. You know,
they have to be flirty.
Even black characters in Jackie Chan movies will be like overly like what I guess like the Chinese would assume to be black. But yeah, it's just when we had Liesl on, I honestly thought it was like the most interesting thing to talk about when it came to her time on the game, and so I really wanted to dig deep and just like not cut any corners or really I guess beat around the bush. Like I wanted to get into it and talk about what her thoughts were, what Sega's were, and so for me, that's always the fun part of doing interviews with people is finding like a kernel of something to talk about that no one really else has, and I'm never afraid to talk about those things. So I'm very happy that she was very open to talk about it. But I do think it's interesting that like it was a trans character even in the English release, but Sega were still like hiring a woman to do the voice, and rather than maybe a man, or even I think now progressively they'd be like, oh, we're going to hire a trans voice actor.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
which, you know,
go on.
Yeah.
I was going to say
no, I was going to say you can have your opinions on it. I'm of the mindset that hire the person that can do the best voice for the character. You don't need to like match. You know, like it's acting. You know, so you don't need to find a black character to voice a black character, an Asian character. You know, but I get it, I understand it, but that's my personal opinion.
I do agree with you. It coming off a little silly, but I think just having exposure to like a trans character and the idea of a trans character back then is just even in a silly way, like. It still lets people, I don't know. I understand now. It's like we're so progressive that it's like that's an insult. But it's like I don't even think people even talked about trans people like in mainstream media at all. Like so, the idea of a big budget video game actually dedicating a whole character that's actually pretty big and it's throughout a whole chapter, even if it's a villain and maybe people would see that negatively.
Right.
I think it's pretty progressive at the time because we didn't even have legalized gay marriage in America. So like the idea that a Japanese studio was doing something like this, and I agree with you that in today's standards definitely comes off as like bad. And I'm not gonna like defend them or anything about that. But I will say that it's a lot more than a lot of Western games were doing at the time. Like I don't think I could think I can think of one game that has a trans character in America, like from the early 2000s. So I will say they try to be progressive in their own ignorant way. I think that's the best way to describe it.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
The next character, which is weird because he's so important because he comes from the letter from the first one, right? Yuanda Zhu. He eventually you find him, the guy that sent your father that deadly premonition in the form of a letter. Ironically, he is hiding in the Ghost Hall building trying to escape the Yellowhead gang that's after him. This section of the game is actually the most divisive because you have to walk up the planks to get to the room where Zoo is hiding. Like typical video game fashion, he is kidnapped when you meet him, forcing Ryu to go up to the rooftop of the Yellowhead building where Zoo is being forced to enter into a helicopter with Lan Di. So this is where we get the whole fight scene, right? With the last boss. After that, we find out a few new things. But before we get that, what do you think about finally seeing Lan Di face to face? Because like this is my most epic part of the game. Like he's literally
Huge
feet
deal.
away.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
they kind of like build him up to be like this, like the demon or something. You know what I mean? Like this like powerful like eccentric character, and he's like right there in the helicopter after, because it feels like you spent 2 years waiting for this game, you know?
Right, and I mean, if you draw the Star Wars like similarities in the first Star Wars film, Luke and Darth Vader don't really share a scene together. They don't go face to face. I think Vader's fighting Obi-Wan, and Luke's way in the back, and he shouts no and runs on to the Falcon, and just like in this case, like I mean, he did face him in Shenmue 1, but it was an opening cutscene. It was pretty brief, and after that, you don't see him again. So you basically go 2 full games before you actually confront the main villain from a gameplay perspective instead of a story perspective, and that was huge. You know, that I think. I honestly think the ending of this game, from the handcuff part with Ren all the way up until the ending, is some of the most like epic storytelling and gameplay you're ever going to see on the Dreamcast. And if I can backtrack, when I was talking earlier about how like pissed off I was that he didn't just like end Shenmue, and that I'm getting less and less invested in the story. I think it's because I felt it was downhill from there. Like, it just was so epic that I have not seen it. I have not seen Shenmue 3 like meet that or exceed that. I'd love for it to, but it's just I think they did such a great job that they almost like painted themselves into a corner.
Yeah, and like
how do you outdo that?
Imagine if in America we actually got like an 8-disc one game thing where it's 1 and 2, just Shenmue, you know, like the volume 1 or whatever, and we actually
well, we kind of did.
I mean, we're gonna talk about that re-release. Don't get me wrong, but like if we actually like on Dreamcast, like in 2001, let's say they delayed it to 2001. Too bad it was already too late, but. I think a lot of people would have a lot more positive opinions of the game. Like, I don't think people would have it's boring, all you do is look at your house stereotype about it. I think people would be like, wow, there's some big action scenes in this game. It's like an RPG, like Final Fantasy VII. It's like, those RPG games, they take a while to get really good. So I think people would have been way more positive, and there wouldn't be the Twitter like, oh, well, Destiny makes $1 million a second. I don't care how much money it makes. Leave me alone on Twitter. Anyway, so let's talk about some of the stuff we found out because of this character. Lan Di's real name, we found out, is Long Sun Zhao. Lan Di killed Ryu's father, and this part has been kind of like hinted in the first game, for vengeance because he killed his own father, Sun Ming Zhao. After Ryu is reluctant about the news, Zoo says that he thinks that maybe it's not true, that there was an accident or maybe something else happened to his father, that he doesn't think his dad killed him or whatever. We also get a hint at what the mirrors do. According to legend, it's supposed to lead to the resurrection of the ancient order known as the Qing Dynasty. Ryu is tasked to go to Bailu Village for our last act. So right away, this game already has way more traveling. So we're already going to go to the like third location, Hong Kong. What is it? Kowloon. And now Bailu Village. So it's interesting compared to the first game where I guess technically you don't stay always in the little town because you go to the harbor later. But this one has a lot more traveling, and I think the traveling's it's really interesting. I did like the harbor, though. I thought that it was cool that it had the cafeteria and the racing. But let's talk about the last character. I think this is probably the most important character, and the fact that we don't even meet her in the first game is crazy until like the end of 2. Shenhua, Shenhua. How do you say her name?
Shenhua.
Shenhua. I can never say Chinese names.
I've got here. Keep talking. I've got a little statue of her. I'll bring her over.
Bring it over. She, as a character, she comes off as innocent, especially with her outlook on common city life. But her eternal strength and courage was created by living in the wilderness in China. She's well versed in nature and knows her way around herbs. She also loves animals and tries to save a drowning deer. Let me see. We find out that Shenhua was born to wealthy parents who lived in a big temple-like house. We also found out that Shenmue is actually, the name of the game is actually named after a tree, and Shenhua is named after the flower it produces. As the fate of her parents, it is said they died in an event, but it's unclear in the game if that's true. So, do you remember when you met her and she explained to you the name of the tree, that Shenmue is literally named after a tree?
Yeah. I thought that was awesome.
Really?
I like the reveal.
I thought it was like, what does this tree have to do with the story, and how important? And I think it's like during. I don't know if it actually has any story. In the end, it's gonna have any. But I feel like it's tied to the old man in the peach tree that we talked about in the first episode, the demo that became this franchise, and maybe like in homage to that, like, oh yeah, we named the game after the tree. And Shenhua is the flower, or do you think there's an actual like symbolic relationship with the story and the ending and Landy with the actual tree and the name?
I think it's yet to be revealed. I think they're slowly building to it. So if they do want to have like another epic moment, maybe the reveal of what Shenmue has to do with this whole story. It's interesting though, because I never really think of what the meaning behind Shenmue is. It's such a great name that when I played the first game, I never really was like, what is Shenmue? I'm like, well, I'm playing it. This is Shenmue. It's interesting. Yeah. But I have my Shenhua statue here. It's a little vinyl statue. They sold these in, it says 1998.
Oh, man.
In Japan.
They probably look like trash.
This is...
Let me see the face.
This is... You want to see your face? This is from the era when you could buy things on eBay back in the mid-2000s, and they weren't costing you an arm and a leg. I think I got this for like $10. It's it's pretty fun though, a little statue.
I bought a cup of coffee on there, $200 shipped.
Yeah.
It was collector's coffee though. You got to understand, it was sealed. Did you see all the Madden prices and stuff that they're going up? It's ridiculous.
It's insane.
Man, people on eBay are crazy. So in the game, after you get to Shenhua's house, I didn't talk about her adopted family. She then got adopted by Yun Shenwan when her father died, living in the edge of Bailu village, having never left basically that city her whole life. Her adopted, or town basically. It's not even a town, it's like a middle of nowhere, dude. It's like the forest. She literally never left it. Her adopted family has been stonemasons for generations and are the family who created both the Phoenix and Dragon Mirrors. So she has her adopted family. I think it's a real family maybe or something, but they have a big tie to the Phoenix and Dragon Mirrors. In the game, after you get to Shenhua's house, the next morning you go to look for her adopted father in the stone pit, where he is working but is missing. He leaves behind a sword, the sword of the 7 stars, and he notes, "Dear Shenhua, my work is done. The Phoenix is entrusted to our people is now complete. The time of destiny has come. Shenhua, go with the one who holds the Phoenix and find the proof. Yield yourself to the one," I don't know what that means, "and go together. I shall give you the family treasure, the sword of the 7 stars. Think of the sword as a part of me and keep it with you. I shall always watch over you." Sounds like he's dead a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So what was your thoughts on? Well, he also, if you go in the cave, there's a giant dragon and phoenix mirror on the stone walls. So what do you think about this? A lot of people, this is like it started to get to be like magic. I think that's a lot of people talk about when they talk about this scene. But I feel like they already kind of hinted at it in the first game when you had a dream of Shenhua, and Shenhua dreamed of you, or at least knew the dream was happening.
Right.
And in a lot of these fiction and books, dreams mean a lot, like Game of Thrones, The Stand with Stephen King. All these characters have dreams of each other, and it's like that we have telepathic thoughts about each other in dreams is kind of like the idea behind it. Do you think that this is kind of stuff they've been hinting at?
Yeah, I mean, I always felt like there was some sort of magic involved in the games as early as when you had that leaf that was an old leaf, but it still felt like it was fresh and alive. And wasn't there a hint to like a fountain of youth or something like that?
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was all this mystery of these secrets and these importance given to all these items that must lead to something magical. I mean, it's a video game; it's not real life, so they can do whatever they want.
And I think it's interesting that they made like the grounded in reality section so well done that when people saw this, they're like, "What the fuck are you guys doing? Like, are you guys literally going to have a sword now and magic?" Like, I remember people saying that you're going to be able to do Hadoukens in the third game. People on forums, obviously, people thinking, "Oh,
Shenmue Online, you could."
Yes, I didn't want to talk too much about Shenmue Online because I think it was canceled and never came out. But there's so many footage and like notes and drama behind that game, how it was supposed to finish the story, that I think would be interesting as a mini episode in the future, because I think we could talk about Shenmue forever. I will say though that in this game there is definitely no Hadoukens. I wish, but I do think they're building to that. I think it's the idea was like, you know, in Final Fantasy you kind of already have all these magic and potions. I think he wanted to do like you discover this world as a normal kid in Japan, and that's part of the like I guess wonderment of the game. I'm gonna play a little bit of Daniel's clip for his Shenhua. What he thinks about her.
Wow, what an iconic, huge, special moment for the series. That really, I did not see that coming. Honestly, when I first played this game, I didn't know she was going to be at the end of the game. I was so happy to finally see. I'm like, it's the girl. Like, it's her. She's finally here. And it was just so cool seeing Rio and her meet. I have no idea what kind of relationship they're going to have in the future, but I think she has some kind of like mystical powers. But I feel like she has a big role that we just don't see yet. I mean, we know what we do. They're hinting at it very, very well. She can talk to animals. Even Ren sensed something about her when he first meets her in Shenmue 3. There's like these like little things they're like hinting at with her. I love that when Rio's doing Tai Chi at nightfall by the tree when they're camping out. That was such a great moment. I loved walking with Shenhua at the end of the game because it was just so special with the music and with the graphics and scenery. I pulled an all-nighter in that scene when I first played Shenmue 3 back in 2015.
Yeah, I ended it right there. But when I beat that chapter, I actually beat it late at night, and I actually just finished the game. I just wanted to see what would happen. I was actually a little more disappointed that it was just walking and talking, but now I appreciate that chapter more because I think it's pretty brave of them not to just add random action scenes in here and just let you basically enjoy the forest, the calmness of being in this like secluded area. I thought they did that really well, even if as a kid I hated it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they did that really well. So let's talk a little bit about the gameplay of this game. I'm not going to go into it. We kind of know what the game's about, right? We've basically played the first one. We know how it moves. I don't think so. 2 basically is the same as 1. It's an expansion of it, but there was a lot of stuff they fixed that people complained about back in the day. So let's talk about that. Well, the action in Shenmue 2 increased quite a bit. Shenmue 2 also features a lot of QTEs and actual free battles. We talked about that a little bit before. In Shenmue 1, players would have to wait for events. So if you were supposed to meet someone at 9 p.m. and it was the morning, you actually had to wait for 9 p.m. to actually meet them. But this time now you could fast forward time. Unlike the first game, a job isn't required for money since they have stuff like wrestling, street fighting, and pachinko stands. Shenmue 2 also allows you to ask people for directions, and they will walk you to the building you're supposed to go, in contrast from number 1, which is more about exploring. What was your opinion on the walking? Because, like, I remember, like, being a kid and, like, oh, yeah, I have to walk across town. I'm going to leave my controller down. I'm going to go to the bathroom. And just let
I would do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone did that. At that point, they might as well just, like, load you there, you know? Like, now we have quick travel. Back then, we didn't. So, like, they thought...
Right.
Well, people have to walk you there, obviously. That's how it works in real life. That was funny. Shenmue 2 also has a new question system, allowing the player to choose from different questions to ask NPCs. This is something that kind of defined Western RPGs after this, like Mass Effect and The Witcher. One of Shenmue 1's charm is exploring and finding secrets. At certain days, you would unlock certain secret cutscenes, which was mostly done away with in Shenmue 2. Not that there isn't some, but definitely not as much of the exploration bits as the first game. What do you think about that? Did you actually like ever look up all the like secret cutscenes and try to like get them in the game?
I did learn about them. I thought it was really cool how many little secrets there were, like the bitchy girls. But then again, there was some pretty wild duck racing, correct? In Shenmue 2.
Yeah.
So, you know, there was trade-offs. There were some pretty wacky... There's a hidden fight, too,
Yeah.
I think, with a really wild-looking fighter. So there were still secrets, but not nearly as intricate, for sure.
I do think that it's kind of weird, like, your house in the first game is probably the most detailed area of everything. Like, you could, like, look at everything. That was the one... I think that's what blew a lot of people's minds. But I do agree, like... But also in the first game, you had a lot of friends. So, like, the idea of you, like, meeting people made sense because you lived in this life. And in this one, it's like you're new. Yeah. Shenmue 2 is known for better pacing. More events happen than either Shenmue 2 or 3 in this game. Or 1 and 3. So this game has more story than, like, every Shenmue game so far. But it has a less interactive virtual world as the first game. You know, like I said, Ryu's house was the most detailed. Shenmue 2 Dreamcast lets you import your saves from Shenmue 1, including items, money, capsule toys, move scrolls, time differences. So, like, if you left at a certain time in the first game, you would arrive in, like, a similar time that it would actually take to travel to Hong Kong. Just based on the time that you finished the game. I thought it was pretty interesting. Really attention to detail. Shenmue, what was your opinion on the whole, like, save thing? Like, that you could... everything carries over. Was that a big deal to you?
I thought that was really cool. That it made the whole backpack stealing thing even more impactful because you lost access to all of your items. And, I mean, spoiler alert, when you get your backpack back, the money's gone, which really sucks if you were building up a lot of money in the first game. But I did read before I played the game, I was reading some, like, tips and tricks. And one of the tips was when you get off the boat, immediately spend all your money on the shops. And buy lighters. And so I bought a bunch of Zippo lighters. I sold them out. And then when my backpack gets stolen, I only had like $5 in it. So when Rio gets his backpack back, he's like, "Where's all my money?" It's like, well, Rio, you didn't have any. You spent it all. But you got all the lighters back, and then you resell the lighters, and you get a bulk of your money back. I mean, you get maybe half of it, but it's still a lot, you know?
Yeah.
So, little trick.
That is a good trick.
FAQ.
You're basically laundering money, basically in Shenmue, because they steal it from you.
Pretty much, yeah.
I will say, Shenmue 2 also features classic Sega I&II arcade cabinets. The first one had Hang On and Space Harrier. This one has those two plus Afterburner and Outrun. We also have Excite QTE2, Neo Darts, slot machines, and etc. I know a lot of people don't play these games for, like, the classic games. I don't think anyone, not like Yakuza, where people always talk about the mini games, I think. This one, it was obviously the graphics, the adventure, the virtual world, how massive it was, the quality of the game. A lot of people kind of slept on the idea that you could literally play Outrun in this game. That's an excellent game, and it was, I mean, it was, what, 10, 12 years old at the time here. Now it's like 30-something years old. So it wasn't like,
Right.
you know, it's like having a game that came out literally in 2008. Like, oh, Alien Isolation's playable in the new game that's coming out or whatever. Basically, you know. So I thought that was interesting.
The Yakuza games and Judgment games are kind of keeping that alive too, like to the point where it's almost like, ooh, what port are they going to give us this time? You know?
Oh, definitely. I think a lot of people, like, they're even doing like 3D stuff in the new ones, and it's funny because
It's insane.
Yakuza didn't really start off like that. Like, it's weird because they started off as a they had like a made up game on the first one for the PS2. They never had arcade games, so it took them a while to get to it. But Shenmue, day one, already had it. That's says a lot about the quality of what they were doing back then. Let's talk about the music. One of the most iconic parts of the first two games, even if you hate the game, is the soundtrack. Unsurprisingly, the game
Right.
basically had almost every Sega composer working on the game. Starting to naming them, we'll be here all day. Shenmue 2 had 12 different composers. The two of the most well-known being Mitsuyoshi and Koshiro, who did Daytona USA and Streets of Rage soundtracks. Shenmue game soundtracks is very well known for mixing genres of music, from epic tunes to jazzy bar music. There's lots of great tracks and variety, and in my opinion, the music in these games are some of the best ever made for any game, and should stand right next to popular soundtracks like Halo, The Witcher 3, and even the Doom soundtrack. Even though Shenmue 2's soundtrack is great, we all agree, it seemed that back then there was like no actual CD release. So when I actually wanted to see, I know what you're gonna pull out because I have it right here, Bubba. You're gonna be talking about Shenmue 1 and 2. Well, first let's talk about the data disc release they did. This data disc release is, I think, the first actual physical. I put the first one on here, but they have the other record for 2. I like how when I turned it on, it was the first one.
Right.
Yeah, they basically did 2 data disc. If you guys want to check it out, data. What is that minus sign disc with a C.com. They sell the vinyl for 21 euros, or I don't know.
Is it
pounds.
still in stock? Both of them?
Yeah, they are. They're in stock right now. The see-through green and I think the black. Yeah.
Did they come in the slipcover?
No, you have to buy the
Or is that sold out?
You have to buy the slipcover separately, and I don't know if they have it. I actually own the slipcover with it, but I can't show it to you because of the green screen on the thing. But it's really nice. I think Data Disc did a good job with these. This is only the selection of music, right? I don't know. What is your thoughts on the idea that like they didn't even release a physical version, dude?
I'm way over here.
Oh, got you.
But it's...
You sound fine.
It's weird. Like, for a game that's this big, like, you'd have to wait years, decades, in order to get, like, a proper official release. And I've got the Data Discs slipcover one here. So, yeah, you got Shenmue 1. And, I mean, obviously, for such a massive soundtrack, these are in no way complete.
No,
you know?
no. I don't think we ever got a physical, complete one.
We did. I mean, for Shenmue 3, they've been releasing all of those. Like, there's an insane amount of ways that you can get the Shenmue 3 soundtrack. There's
2.
the complete... Exactly. And it's funny, because for as all the versions that are out there, I just opted for the basic Shenmue 3 vinyl, just so it could go with the 1 and 2. But even this... 3 recycles a lot of songs that were found in 1 and 2, as well as unused tracks. They made so much music that I don't really fault them for, you don't need to start from scratch with Shenmue 3 since you spent so much time and money and energy making music for the first 2 games and you didn't even use it all. So, yeah, very interesting.
The other way to get the soundtrack is through the Shenmue 1 and 2 collector's edition in Japan. It came in a white box. I actually own this one too. I know you do too. It's a limited edition. It actually comes with the soundtrack for 1 and 2, but also 40 songs. It comes in a double CD, but it's the same thing. It's only select tracks, which is a big issue for this franchise. Like they don't have they have a complete Shenmue 3 collection, but not 1 and 2. Like the soundtrack, like I would buy a box set with everything on it at this point, like a CD box set.
Even 3, because the 3 box set costs an insane amount of money.
No, I'm good. I don't want to. I want 1 and 2. Those are the nostalgic ones for me. But
yeah, here's the CD soundtrack for those wondering if you're watching on video.
DVD.
It came in the collector's box. It's in like a DVD-sized case, which is actually pretty common in Japan to get soundtracks on DVD-sized cases.
Probably nice though because they don't break.
Yeah, really, really nicely made. And then the game itself looks almost exactly the same as the American one, but the box that it comes in is just epic. I love it. I think it looks awesome.
That's some of the nicest artwork for a game. I think we talked about how it might have been new, but I might be wrong on that. The renders, but I might not be.
It looks like they're not, but a lot of them have not been seen in this quality. Like Ren's crossed arms there, I've never seen that much of his body. Yeah. It looks cool though. Yeah, definitely must buy.
Let's talk about the Xbox release of the game. While Shenmue was released in Japan in 2001, US players had to wait all the way until 2002 to play the game on Xbox. While Shenmue 2 did release on Dreamcast in the UK, like we talked about, it was released with Japanese spoken language with subtitles. The year to wait for Xbox not only gave Shenmue 1 owners the game in the US, but it also gave us a full English dub with Corey Marshall reprising his role as Ryu, and he's kind of lived up to the image. Like he still he still has the fan base behind him. He still talks about the game to this day, and his role as Ryu. What was your point? What do you think about all that? Him and still embracing it.
I think it's cool. I think it's very rare to see a voice actor embrace a character like that, despite the fact that the games have been on hiatus for so long. A lot of times it's like, they do a few games and then they, they're done. Like the original voice of Bubsy wasn't like, oh, I'm coming back for those new games that just came out. Like he was one and done.
For sure.
Brian Silva. But with this, with him, and he's super engaged with the fan base, which is cool. And his voice is iconic. It is the Rio voice in English. We've never really seen that with any other characters, maybe outside of, within Sega, maybe outside of Sonic, who we still have people who are like, no, the guy who did Sonic Adventure, he's the one. He's my Sonic, and it's like, well, he only did 3 games, 2 or 3 games.
It was funny when they brought this is not this game, it's a Sega game, but Yakuza, Like a Dragon, when they brought back the English voice actor for. It was funny though because he was the worst voice actor in the whole game. Like it's like Atlas and Sega had gotten so good at dubbing their games that they hire like such good voice actors that like. Having somebody from back 2005 that was their leading guy, it's like, oh, this guy's the worst actor in the whole game. Even though, like, the side characters are betterly, voiced. But I thought it was, a funny little because I played the first game as when it first came out. So to me, it's like a nostalgic feeling having that bad voice back.
Yeah, right.
So Yu Suzuki did interviews promoting the Xbox version of the game, suggesting that it would take full advantage of the Xbox hardware and it would push the Xbox hardware to its limit. The actual game was basically an enhanced port, thanks to the enhanced hardware that the Xbox had, including and some of this stuff people hated, like the blooming lights at night. People didn't like that on Xbox. But there was also better looking waters, more shadows for the draw distance, and less jaggies. I think the jaggy problem was probably the biggest improvement. I have some pictures here that you guys could see. This is the Dreamcast one. If you're watching our video, it's just showing buildings. I got this from Hardcore Gaming 101, great site. So they have these comparison pictures that we're seeing. As you can see that right here, the Dreamcast version has a lot of jaggies. If you look really far in the buildings, there's less shadows on them. Like, they display less shadows. And if you look at on the Xbox, the shadows are more defined, even further. Mm-hmm. And this is obviously because the Xbox hardware is ridiculously better. It's no comparison. I don't think any fan would say the Dreamcast could have beat the Xbox. But there is some stuff that I look at and I'm like, it's weird how the floor looks better on the Dreamcast, just more detailed. Probably because of the VGA, you know? Gives it that extra detail.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I do think that the Dreamcast has the best video quality out of the console. That's about it. I mean, it doesn't run better than Xbox games. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I haven't. I do think that the Xbox looks clear enough. You know, it's like the PS2 is the worst one. But yeah, load times were also reduced. It had 4.1 surround sound added to cutscenes. Frame rate was now consistently 30 frames per second, with less characters disappearing when they walked by you. The DVD shrunk the 4 GD ROM disc into one DVD, and the Xbox included the award-winning Shenmue the movie. For players that didn't play the first game, just pop in the movie, watch it with the family. It's an epic. I remember when we watched it together, and I was like, "Man, this shit's boring as fuck." I can't believe that people really thought they could watch. Like, it was just edited badly too, wasn't it?
It's very strange. It's a edited down version of Shenmue, but they transferred it to film and actually showed it in theaters for a brief period of time.
Oh yeah.
And then they transferred it back to DVD, but they used a film print, so you're looking at Dreamcast footage that was put onto film and then transferred to DVD, which is wild to me. And then the cover shows like mock box art, but this has never existed in America as actual box art of the movie. It's amazing.
I think
it's so bizarre.
I think I might have a picture of the premiere. Oh no, I think I took it down. Oh yeah, here it is. Oh no, I don't think this is it. But I used to have a picture in one of my folders where like they basically showed you that they had like a big Hollywood event in Japan for the movie. They all like went and sat down and watched it. And when we watched it on one of our videos, that's probably on our YouTube channel, it was just so weird how badly edited it was. I was like, wow, a professional person edited this. Then Yu Suzuki brought everyone from the crew over to watch it in the cinema, and no one said, yeah, we got to re-edit this. That's crazy.
Right, yeah, and if you guys listening to this or watching this want to see it yourself, it's if you search Sega Cinema Shenmue the movie on YouTube or on our website, segabits.com, it's the entire movie with our commentary from back in 2013.
Whoa.
Talking over it with Bartman from Sonic Retro. Very weird moment.
Oh, yeah.
In Sega history. Very weird.
The game also had picture mode, which lets you have snapshots and save it onto the Xbox hard drive, and also included filters like black and white and like other colors, which it's funny because like picture modes are now like in every game. Almost every AAA game has its own picture mode or photo mode. So I just think it's funny that like Yu Suzuki thought of this, like to add this as on the Xbox port because it's easier to do. I'm assuming he had this idea for the Dreamcast, but was like, can you imagine the VMU space you would have to take pictures? Yeah, it'd be it would be crazy. But they did that. They even had Instagram filters before Instagram. So I mean, Facebook, pay it up. Yu Suzuki invented filters. It's making all the girls look good, and they're not getting a penny. Anyway, let's talk about game covers. You're a graphic designer, Barry. What do you think about? I mean, technically, on
paper.
What do you think about the Xbox cover versus the Dreamcast cover? They're both pretty different, and I have my own feelings about each one. But what do you think about them?
I most definitely prefer the Dreamcast cover. I think it's much more in line with the original game.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
I've never been a fan of the European Dreamcast box art because I don't like this big box at the top. And it's like, oh, well, maybe when I take the disc out, it will show. But no, they still retain that giant blue Dreamcast.
It's ugly.
Still, it looks nice. I don't like the Xbox cover at all. I think it's ugly.
Why? What's so ugly about it?
it's poorly drawn. The characters don't look like themselves. Like, it's just
Definitely.
overall, like, super ugly.
You know, it kind of reminds me of those, like, I have, like, it reminds me of those, like, Kung Fu movie posters that you see where it's, like, they're all drawing, like, kind of like Enter the Dragon. It's not as well done, obviously, but I could see the vibe they're trying to go for. They're trying to make it feel like a cinematic Kung Fu movie. They have the fighting, Lan Di, the bad guy with the shadowy reflection. I can see what they're doing. I do agree that the drawings are not the best. It, like, doesn't even look like the art style. What's up with Ryu's face? Like, that's kind of weird. Like, his face looks not like him. But yeah, besides that, I understand what they were going for, and I like that in a way, like a movie poster. But this one does align more with the original, so I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted on those, but...
Is that Rio in the corner, bottom right, like over the Sega logo? Who is that?
It's supposed to be him as a kid, dude, and that's supposed to be the master we meet in this game, obviously an old man, like I told you, like the Kung Fu movie. Yeah, I don't know either. Maybe it's I don't know what it's supposed to be. Actually, I never even thought of that. I just assumed that it was supposed to be like a, hey, this kid trained as a martial artist.
Is that him? I'm looking. I guess that is him, but he's on the far right or far left too. Like Rio's on the cover 4 times, because the little DVD down below of Shenmue
cool.
the movie.
They could have added him in. They could have added him in a couple more times. You know, is that a
And
big
he's on the
no-no
back.
graphic design?
Oh my God, he's on the back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times.
Is that a big no-no in
5,
graphic
6,
design?
7,
Like if I do a
8,
poster,
9, 10.
I shouldn't put Daredevil 15 times on the cover.
There are 11 Ryo Hazukis on the front and back.
Imagine if they did a multiverse like Far From Home, but Far From Japan. There was a rumor back then that there was going to be a PS2 version of the game. I mean, this is from a different language magazine. I did some of the... this was posted... I just saw it on the Sega Retro. There was no notes. It just said, PS2 Dreamcast scan. I mean, Shenmue 2 PS2 scan. That's all it said. And I was like, what? So I looked at it. And I guess it's from a Russian or some other language. Maybe what is it? What are they talking? What are they speaking? Poland? Polish? Yeah. It's so easy. It doesn't really say anything. It just says something that like the game is coming out from outside of Dreamcast. Maybe they were thinking about it maybe at one point to put it on PS2, but like first of all, it's using Shenmue 1 instead of, it says Shenmue 2, but the pictures are from the first game. So it's like I don't think they were really going to do this. And plus PS2 can't run this game. Get out of here. Have you ever seen a game this detailed on the PS2? I'm sorry. There's stuff that PS2 is good at, but like, I think this game was taking advantage of what the Dreamcast was good at, and some stuff that the Dreamcast was good at, the PS2 was not good at, and the Xbox was just good at everything. So it was like, okay, cool, Xbox, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. Would you think they should have done a PS2 version of the game, of 1 and 2 maybe?
I mean, it would have been a fine idea, but by that point, it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's such a disjointed trilogy already that I don't know. I think it was a mistake, though, to not bring 1 and 2 over to Xbox. I think they should have done that if they were going to make it exclusive, because it just seems so weird to be like, hey, Xbox owner, did you own a Dreamcast and play Shenmue? Because here's the sequel. Oh, you didn't play the first one? There's a DVD included. And you watch the DVD and you're like, I don't want to play the second one.
How long was it?
This is weird.
How long was the movie? Like an hour, right? I want to say it was an hour.
Hour and a half.
That was the longest hour and a half. And literally, like, I don't know. I feel like if I really sat down, I could edit it together a better movie than that. Like, it's just so bad. I can't get over how bad the editing was in that thing.
Insane.
We're getting close to the end of the episode. This part is where we talk about advertisement. There's some really good advertisements for this game. I think you're gonna laugh at the video ones from Japan. But first, let's talk about this. I don't know. We even know what to call it. It looked like it was a Shenmue 2 US ad for Shenmue 2 never came out on Dreamcast in the US, but there was an ad for it, right? The one that he's like kicking the screen and it says, "This time it's personal." It's like really iconic. This is a really iconic ad. People are selling this as a poster like a lot, so obviously it's cut out right here, as you could tell, because someone's trying to sell it. Couldn't find the scan
That's
of it.
funny.
But this is a really iconic poster. I just don't understand, like, was this given to... I'm assuming this was given to stores, but people are saying it's from a magazine. Do you remember seeing this in an actual magazine? Because I thought I saw it in, like, GameStop or something like that.
I feel like I've seen this in a magazine. Hard to say. It does look like a poster, but it could have been cut out really cleanly.
Yeah.
I think it's weird, though, that he'd have, like, Shenmue 2 on his foot.
The brand of shoes.
Yeah, right.
And did he even wear boots? Like, he wore, like, tennis shoes, so now he's wearing, like, work boots. And the kick is very awkward, so you could tell, like, they took assets from Sega I&II, and the graphic designer had kind of a field day with the perspective and stuff of it.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Very odd.
Yeah, what do you think about this ad? Like, does this get you pumped to watch this, to play the second one?
Oh, I can't wait.
Now we get to see what the actual ad on Xbox was, which is, I think, is more of a traditional ad. The green border, I don't even know if it's actually green. I don't know if it's just because the guy that scanned it added the green border, but besides the green border that really makes it go, pop, it's just a typical, like, the renders are on top, the screenshots in the bottom, no tagline that I could see. Maybe there is a little tagline. I can't see it from here, but what was your thoughts on this one? It just feels kind of plain compared to, like, the other ones that they did.
Let's see. I'm bringing it up here. Yeah. That's boring.
Yeah.
I don't know. Not doing it for me.
I feel like even the one we saw with the girl, this is her trigger finger is not her best or whatever, or her trigger finger is not her best whatever. The Gun Valkyrie one was even more iconic.
Right. Yeah.
And it was double paged. So it's like, what? Okay, cool. One page?
It kind of looks like the 1 and 2, like, elements are there, but the layout's different.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's a weird ad. So, this is actually a really weird ad that we're going to be looking at right now. I think it's actually kind of funny because I don't even want to ruin it for you because I want to see what you think about it. Let me put it up over here. Let me put it on for the video over here. I'm trying to set it up. All right. I'll play it now. So the meat guy, right? He pulls out a gun, dude. Oh my god, I didn't even play it over here in this side. Sorry, my bad. Let me rewind it. But basically, Ryu is going into a meat shop. This guy's cutting the meat, and then he opens fire on him with a machine gun. Why? Like,
That's not even Riho. It's like
a guy is supposed to play him, right? Also,
What?
and then in the end, they're like advertising Virtual Fighter 4. I felt like they advertised Virtual Fighter 4 in Japan more than 2. It's like, buy Shenmue 2, you get Virtual Fighter 4 demo or something like that. It's like, what? Or you,
Right.
So it's like, okay, whatever. And then, so this is a motif with the real life commercials. They did 2 of them. Here's another one.
Yeah.
Let me put it on. All right. So now it's the girl that you sex up, but like, what happens? She has a gun, dude. Everybody has a gun in China.
Why do they all have guns?
Was there even a gun in the games ever?
I don't think so. I don't think there are any guns in Shenmue.
I don't think I even saw one model of a gun. I do remember my friend asking me, like, why don't they just shoot the guy? And I'm like, you know what? When I played the game, I never even thought about somebody could shoot him. Like, I just played the game as a kung fu game. I never watched, like, I never play, like, or watch Jackie Chan movies and go, why don't they just shoot him in the head? It's like, well, I just watch it because the action scenes are cool. I don't know. But yeah, this is another one. Have you noticed they use a Sega AM2 Presents logo in the front, and it reminds me of the Rio Gota or whatever, how they use the RGG logo now in their trailers.
Right.
But yeah, here's this one. This is just the characters real quick. This is another one they showed. This is probably better because it actually sells you the game. This one's condensed basically to a 15-second, but obviously the advertisement budget for 2 versus 1 is like night and day, right? Because like you remember Shenmue 1 in America, they were in the front of TV Guide, the first video game to be in the cover of TV Guide. So this is totally different. And do you think that those real life advertisements actually work, having the gun? Like, to me, it's like, what is that? I don't understand what they're trying to show you, that there's danger.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't like it.
They do a lot of those in Japan, apparently. But so let's talk a little bit about the legacy of the franchise so we could close up the episode. Shenmue has kept up a cult and very loud fan base online since the release of Shenmue 2, mostly demanding re-releases of games, and Shenmue 3, obviously. We will be talking about Shenmue 3 in another episode, but before we talk about 1 and 2 re-releases, what is you wanted to talk about the Shenmue fan base a little bit before we get into it, right?
Yeah. They are a very passionate fan base. They are a very forgiving fan base. They are a very protective fan base, they are a fan base that I feel like I should be a part of, but I'm not. And it feels very strange to say that. I don't know if you feel this way, but I don't know. I don't feel like the Shenmue fan base has ever been extremely accepting.
I think...
I would say, because as someone who's like a general Sega fan who likes Sega games, and maybe it's because of my position with Sega Bits too, but like I would talk about the game and talk about the future, and there would be so much animosity towards Sega to the point where it would be like, oh, I would have so many people go against me and be like, oh, you're a Sega apologist, you're defending them, they're keeping us from having our third game, they did Yu Suzuki wrong. Maybe this is just my experience, but I'll honestly say I have not had extremely positive interactions with the Shenmue fan base. Outside of maybe the forums at Shenmue Dojo, I think they're very cool.
Yeah.
I honestly think it comes from maybe a vocal minority who runs a lot of like petitions and campaigns on social media, making themselves sound bigger than they actually are. Shenmue 500K comes to mind, when I don't know what the 500,000 is coming from, because they definitely don't have that many people, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, I totally understand the love, because the first 2 games are absolutely fantastic. And I guess where it kind of falls apart for me is the fact that Shenmue 3 came out, and again, we'll get to it. I'm not going to tear the game apart when we talk about it, but it definitely falls short, in my opinion, and I'm actually surprised that so many fans were not more negative towards it, letting Yu Suzuki know that the game needs a lot more work if you're going to make a 4th game. Mm-hmm. And instead they're like, give us 4. And I'm like, a lot of people haven't even played 3, which is a problem, because you need to sell copies of 3 to get a 4th game.
Yeah.
So... what's your take? Because I don't want to. Again, I don't want to be the negative guy. I'm a huge Shenmue fan. It's like I said. Like it was my first import. I played this game a year before most people. I absolutely love it. I have tons of Shenmue crap in my house. But even then, I don't feel like a part of the fan base, and I don't know why.
I would agree with you on the Shenmue Dojo. I think some of my best times, like after the game came, like years after, you know, like maybe 2005. I don't know what I can't even think, but like a lot of my time was spent talking about the theories of what could happen. That was my favorite part of 2, was talking about the theories, like, is there going to be powers? What does this sword mean? What's the future? Did Landy kill his father? Is the whole cycle of revenge?
Right.
And they talked about it a lot in the forums, and Shenmue Dojo was one of the ones that like would dig super deep into it, and they would like make their own theories up that became like almost Game of Thrones like theories, where it's like you look like Charlie from Always Sunny in Philadelphia of connecting the dots. That was really fun. I will say that the other fan base, I feel like I do agree with you. Some of them are toxic, especially when like I started to get into Yakuza, and Yakuza wasn't popular in America yet. It was a lot of years where like I was basically begging on Twitter, like, guys, please buy Yakuza 2 on PS2, and I swear it's a good game. It looks like crap compared to Shenmue 1 and 2. Get this shit out of here. Give Yu Suzuki the money. And it's like, oh my god, dude. It's like, I get that Sega abandoned that project, but it's like, why can't I not like something else? Why can't I not like Yakuza? Like, that was my
that was a big thing.
Yeah, that was my thing with it. And now that Yakuza's been more popular, I think a lot of them have jumped on board and also like it too. So it's interesting, but it was kind of hard in the beginning. Every time on Twitter, people telling you that I was the bad guy because I liked a game that was in Shenmue from Sega, basically.
Right. There was a big, if you're not with us, you're against us sort of mentality, where it's like, wow, I see you haven't liked my Twitter account called Give Us Shenmue 3 Right Now Sega. It seems like you're not a true fan.
I guess not. So we can finally talk about the remake. Sega released Shenmue 1 and 2 Collection, ported by D32T to PC, PS4, and Xbox One in 2018. While the game launched with bugs, the new features in the collection are hard to not want to play this version of the game. Shenmue 2, for example, is actually ported from the Xbox version of the game in this collections. Also, saves now carry over from 1 and 2, since, in America, we never had the Dreamcast 1 officially.
Right.
The games feature both English and Japanese dubs, I think that's probably the biggest selling point right there. The fact that you could just switch between them in one release. While fans were expecting 60 frames per second, the game runs at a solid 30 frames per second because due to the limitations of the engine that were created by Sega AM2. The thing that makes Shenmue 1 and 2 more tempting is the new features, including saving anywhere, updated modern control schemes that it's optional, which is cool that they made it optional and didn't force you to it. This basically the D-pad and the analog stick, you know how it is. Updated UI, HD rendering that supports up to 4K on PC, widescreen support for what is it? Cutscene? Oh no, not cutscenes, but gameplay. Cutscenes are 4:3 still. Sorry. New optional post-processing effects for both games. And lastly, full achievements. If you want to brag that you beat these games, you could do that now on your profiles. So, what is your you played the game when it first came out, and you had kind of strong negative reactions, like it should have been delayed at least a little bit, which is kind of rare for you to say that because you'll be okay with a few bugs and go it happens, whatever. But something had to happen here where you're like, what the fuck? What is this?
Yeah, my issue with it was that it released with far too many bugs to the point where they were relying on third-party people on social media to basically talk to Sega and then relay that information. I think it was Adam Koralik, who you would have to go to him and be like, Adam, what are the fixes? What did Sega tell you? Which is absolutely bonkers that us, a Sega fan site, do not have a direct connection to Sega, to PR people, to get this information. Instead, we have to reach out to another Sega, I guess, YouTuber.
Yeah, it's a mess over there.
And then the fact that Sega spent a amount of their marketing budget having him, and I think a comedian, no, that was different, having him be the one to promote the game and do the ads for it. I thought that was very strange. I think they were mentioning him more than Yu Suzuki. I think Yu Suzuki's name was like almost removed from
The packaging for sure.
the packaging for sure, the marketing. It was just very bizarre,
Like,
to put someone completely unconnected from the game basically front and center in the PR and promotion. And I know full well that he took that negatively when I was saying that. He took it as an attack on him, and like, it's not an attack on
Definitely
him.
not.
Like, I have no problem with him. It's more my issue with Sega Europe specifically, who was overseeing the port, and just how poor a job they honestly were doing in promoting this game. What I think they should have done is released a series of videos putting it in a historic context, explaining who Yu Suzuki was, do another video, talk about the gameplay, do another video, talk about the story, and that's it. Like, you don't need to... And then also have PR people that are actually talking to the community and conveying what fixes are in the game, what the patches are going to be like. And thankfully, we've reached a point now where we're not talking anymore about what patches are. Like, the game is in a great state, I think. Mm-hmm. It just took way too long. And I know Sonic Colors Ultimate was something that released, and I was much more forgiving. But I think we reached a point with that game pretty quickly that it got patched, and we're not complaining about it anymore. But, man...
Yeah, I don't think it should be. I don't know if he even... Like, I hope Adam got paid for those ads and all the work he did, because, like, it shouldn't be on him to promote this game, to be honest with you. He's a fan. I'm happy that he made content for it, and I'm glad that he enjoyed making the content for it, because he loves the game. A lot of people in our Discord love his content. I just think it's... I agree with you. It's like you're explaining, like, basic PR and community management stuff. I don't know. I guess they don't know how to do that. I think it's a little hard for some people, I guess. Right.
Like, if Sega came to us and says, hey, guys, port of a beloved game's coming out, do you want to be the sole person to promote it? I'd go, absolutely not. Can you please do it? Because we don't want that on our shoulders.
Yeah, we can work together and make content, but besides that, I don't want to be the one that has to, like, tell people the bug fixes and I'm the support guy. I'm good, dude. You're not paying me enough for that. So even though this version has a lot of, positive things, there's also a little bit of stuff that people kind of, purists don't like the minor items that, like, had photos of real people have been changed to stock. They used to be stock photos. They didn't get, I guess, the license again. So now it's just NPC photos on items like, I guess, food and stuff. Changes to capsule toys. I think it's, like, very minor. I think the Dreamcast and the Genesis were named after a Japanese magazine. Like how they make those little cute different versions of them.
I've got the behind me there. It's the Sega Hard Historia collection, and it has almost, I think, complete digital archives of all those comics. It's great.
So so it's from that. So they had to change it to just Genesis, Dreamcast. It's not a big deal in my opinion, because we're not nostalgic for the magazine here in America. Brands like Timex have been removed. Now they're just Sega, I think it was. And phone numbers now don't have last digits, because apparently they were real phone numbers. So now, for this part of the podcast, we're going to call every number in the shit. No, I'm just joking. In the original.
Oh, boy. Long distance to Japan.
Can you imagine? I thought they were fake, but, like, can you imagine being 1999, you're going to your house, and it's like, ding, ding, hello. And it's like, do you know where sailors are at? It's like, oh, God. It's, oh, God, make it stop. And, actually, that's all my notes. Is there anything you want to add before we call it quits?
Well, before I read our Patreon memories, I will say I love this game. I love talking about it with people. And I do look forward to the future of Shenmue. I think I'm glad Shenmue 3 happened. I'm really looking forward to the anime. And I don't mean to be down on the fan base. I think I'm in a unique situation where I'm dealing with fans a lot more than the average person. And also it's very easy to, like, point to you or I and be like, you're part of the problem because you're not posting stories every day about how Sega needs to make a Shenmue 3. And, like, that can wear you down. So if I sound like, I don't speak for everyone. I speak for myself. But absolutely love this game. I don't think there will ever be a Shenmue game as great as this ever again. So
Wow.
replay it, enjoy it. I don't think so. I mean, I don't think so. I think the whole handcuff thing was just awesome. It's just such a fun action adventure sort of Hong Kong action movie moment. And that alone, I love this game for that. If you support us on Patreon at any level, you get to have your memories read by my beautiful voice. I have a little bit of a stuffy nose at the moment, so you get to hear a little stuff if you like that sort of thing. Ben Hayward says, as a kid and now after getting back into Sega gaming over the last 5 or 10 years, I've only ever played Master System, Game Gear, and Mega Drive games. Shenmue and Shenmue 2 came and went in the period in between my gaming as a kid and my gaming as an adult. After I started reading Retro Gamer about 5 years ago, I was struck by how much coverage these games had, particularly given I'd never actually heard of them before that, and how much hype there was about them even today. I guess then that my memory of the game is not actually playing it, but being exposed to the excitement of the game that still exists today. For that reason alone, I'm really looking forward to this episode. Hams, who's my new favorite commenter, actually had a lot to say here. I missed Shenmue 2 for the Dreamcast for reasons I can't remember. Thank heavens it was released on the Xbox. A great game, all in all, a lot to explore and characters to meet. The journey to Bailu came as a surprise to me because it felt like the game was going to end right after the fight with that big bald guy. I can't remember his name at the moment. That was a great fight. I still think the first Shenmue is the best in the series. 2 and 3 miss a certain intimacy of the first game. It's hard to put down exactly what it is. Anyway, the story went on, and I hope it continues further. And then we have Nicholas Schaefer saying, this is a game that definitely is on my bucket list. I didn't have an Xbox, but recently purchased it on Steam as part of my New Year's resolution. I'm letting Twitter decide what content I missed, and I will consume in 2022, and Shenmue 2 won that by a landslide. Looking forward to the deeper appreciation you will give me for this game.
And I'll let Daniel Andres sell you Shenmue 2 as the ending. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Bye.
Shenmue is more than just a video game you sit down and play. It's an experience, and I will never forget it. In fact, when I'm on my deathbed, I'm kind of hoping I'm there playing Shenmue before I go, from beginning to end, because it's that beautiful to me, and it really did change my life a lot. Only a few pieces of art in my life has done that, but it's more than just a game. And if you've never played it before, unless if you only own Nintendo consoles, there's no excuse. And no, do not jump to 2 or 3. You gotta start from the beginning. It's just that kind of story. You might hate it at first, but for fuck's sake, I'm pretty sure I'm not the first person to say this. If you've even looked up the series, Shenmue is a game you basically get out of what you put into it. Okay, it's not a game just, okay, I'm gonna run around, what do I do now? No, it's not like that. You need to explore, take your time, and look around for things you want to do. That's the kind of game it is. Don't be a bitch about it. Sit down, enjoy it, play it, take it in, have patience. This game is beautiful. This series is beautiful. Trust me. Trust me. It wouldn't be the same if it was like a comic or a movie or nothing against an anime coming out. I think that's awesome. But people are worried that that's going to be the rest of the story. I really hope that's not where it goes. Shenmue's always designed and made to be a gaming experience, but it's also a story experience. It's both. It's not just a gaming experience. It's a story experience. If you take away either one of them, separate them, it wouldn't be the same. If Shenmue was just a game, it wouldn't be the same. If it was just a story, it wouldn't be the same. You know, it's like they're like mutated together in a very beautiful, flowing way. It's like a beautiful river going down this like perfect stream. That's what it is. It's not like, okay, there's a cutscene now, let's get back to the game. No, it's not like that. Or, oh man, there's too much gameplay. When's the story event gonna happen? It's just a game you gotta take your time with. Do have a review of it. On my channel, Hazuki Warrior 921, no spaces. Is my YouTube channel, and I have like a 2-hour movie review of Shenmue 2. So go and watch that if you want to. Obviously, you guys don't have to watch the whole video once. If you're interested, No, anyone listening, if you're interested, I have 2 reviews of Shenmue 1 and Shenmue 2. I'm still playing through Shenmue 3. I know fans out there really didn't like it, but I think the game is perfectly fine the way it is. Shenmue 3, you people who do not like Shenmue 3, for God's sakes, you do know this is the game that we're always going to have, right? Like, give it a break already. Goddamn. Like, seriously. We're going to get Shenmue 4, don't worry, but I'm hoping we get, like, Shenmue 1 and 2 redone in Shenmue 3's engine, and then we get, like, the entire, like, all 7 games put into one game. I'm not talking about like a game collection. I mean, like, if you start a Shenmue 1, you keep going on and on and on and on and on through all 16 chapters until you're at the end of the game. It's not like, hey, here's this menu of Shenmue 1, menu of Shenmue 2, menu of Shenmue 3. It's not like that. It's like, it's just one giant game. I would love to see that one day. It's pretty big and expansive though. But some people out there put 50,000 hours into games and stuff like that, so you never know. Alright guys, I'm sorry. I know I'm going off and rambling about Shenmue 3, 1, and 2. But when you talk about Shenmue, you can't just talk about one of them, right? Because it's not really that kind of game. So, yeah. I love Shenmue 2. I loved playing it. Kind of felt weird playing it on the Xbox first, and it felt even like, it was like kind of like, okay, I'm finally playing a Dreamcast. It felt right, but I first played it with the 80-minute burn discs with the compressed audio in English, and I was like, oh man, I finally got my hands on those 99-minute CD-ROM discs, 100 gig, or was it 100, or like 1 gigabyte, so I can finally play the game with proper audio. But I also own Shenmue 1 and 2, both the UK and Japanese versions of them too, so not just the US ones for Dreamcast. So I can play the game however I would like to. Plus my Dreamcast is modded, so it makes it all the more easier. In fact, actually, I might play some Shenmue 2 right now because I'm talking about it. I'm currently playing it on my Dreamcast and again anyway, so why not? I talked your ear off. If you all heard that, thank you so much for listening to me talking. God bless you guys. God bless you, Suzuki. God bless Sega. God bless I&II. I'm not super religious or anything. I just, seriously, like God bless. Like, honest to God, because you guys all the greatest luck and everything, and you know, Yu Suzuki, George Barry, anybody who's actually listening to this, thank you, seriously. And I think I'm done. So yeah, long live Shenmue, long live Yu Suzuki in spirit at least, because he made something eternal, and long live Sega.